Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs. Welcome to Warui Deshou, Stream of Thought. This is Banana Fish, episode 17, and we're breaking our backs just to know your name, because everything flows.
I hate you because I wanted to make the joke first. God, sometimes, when we do these stream of thoughts, I just think to myself, that sometimes, the order in which we do, we alternate works out well, or it sometimes doesn't. I obviously got to do the last episode of Frank's, and that was a shit show. And then this time I was like, right, I want to get the moment in to get the killers jokes in because they're gonna roll off the tongue. But no, you had to beat me to it. How dare you? How dare you? So in the meantime, I'm gonna keep pouring my drink.
I dare, because listen, Natalie. Listen,
Cheers.
Natalie, listen. This is your last chance. It's the only one I could think of at the moment that doesn't really fit together well.
I have one for later, which
Okay.
you probably all know. So
I mean, I could have said I dare because I've got soul, but I'm not a soul. But that just would have been too hacky. That's too low hanging fruit even for me.
Well, I've actually made that joke in a previous stream of thought that didn't have anything to do with the killers.
I don't
So,
remember this. Please refresh my memory.
It was a Frank's related one, so let's keep it from your memory.
Fair enough. I'll take that. I've just now done a killers related poll.
To be fair, Tallulah Bell has just made an excellent point. Think about this entire series. It started out of a kiss. How did it end up like this? It was only a kiss. That actually sums up the vast majority of the show's events, especially from AJ's perspective. That's genius. I'll drink to that.
You had a boyfriend that looked like a girlfriend that I had in Fairview last year. Maybe.
Well, that was the mental asylum escape.
Yes.
So it all fits. It all fucking fits. You could write a review of Banana Fish that is entirely Killer's lyrics. Holy shit. That's incredible. That is incredible.
Well, AG doesn't look a thing like Jesus, but he does talk like a gentleman.
I got nothing. I got nothing.
I know. Yeah, this is a formative band for me, the Killers. And by the way, we should mention this is the title of the 17th Banana Fish episode. But this is like one of the first. Boy, if Brandon Flowers sees this stream, he'll be mad. This is one of the first. Their Hot Fuss was one of the first torrents I downloaded as an album.
That feels like a quite apt thing to do for the Killers, because I remember, when they were becoming popular, I was starting to go out clubbing a fair bit because I just turned 18, and all I could think to myself looking back is, wow, this is the most generic paint by numbers shit ever. That's really all that stuff reads as to me. Now, if you like the Killers, that's fine. I'm not going to judge you for that. That'd be crass and silly of me to do so. But all I can think back is, all I can think about looking back is you heard it everywhere, and it's just, yeah. Put some Bucky. Give me some Bowie. Give me some Bowie. That'll do.
So I still have a lot of fondness for the old albums, the first three in particular, and Mr. Flowers. I did buy the subsequent ones as gifts for my wife.
Take that, RAA.
Yeah. So look, hey, piracy led to fucking sales, you dipshits. Oh, imagine that.
Who the fucking fly?
God damn. But I mean, in fair, I didn't have to download the torrent just because and I didn't know it at the time, but it turned out that as you rightly point out, I mean, that music was everywhere, in stores, on music videos, on the precious few channels that still played music videos back then.
Quoted by people back on MSN when that was a social trend.
On MSN?
MSN Messenger.
I never used this. I was an AIM person.
Simultaneously very old, but also not as old as you. That's ridiculous. Because that was the thing I was into,
MSN. Okay, cool.
before we had Facebook's like talk to people.
Did you consider AIM like ancient or whatever, or like things old people used?
We had AOL actually as our ISP back when we first had 56-bit kilobit modem.
Sure.
And I have to say, even as a kid, I considered it to be shit back then.
Oh, it was. It was. But I'm even after I even after I upgraded to cable, DSL, whatever it was we got after, I still kept using the instant messenger client from AOL because it was just that good. Or so I thought.
ICQ for a time as well, would you believe?
Oh, I remember a good old ICQ. Like right when I discovered that, I had also discovered IRC, so I just stuck with IRC. But
yeah, we're being very old.
We are
grumpy, like nostalgic men for the times.
Sorry,
So anyway, we should probably
like sort of pre-millennial and early millennial internet and its various applications.
Never used the nice BBS though, so thank God for that.
No, me neither. I was never there. I wonder what happened to all my old internet friends. I wonder this all the time. Sometimes I wonder if like people on AniTwitter like just have different screen names and were those friends from the Otaku Vengeance IRC channel. I'll never know.
I could spend probably an entire stream talking about the various communities I've been part of as far as various ventures, like the time I was in World of Warcraft, for example, when that was the defining thing I spent a lot of my spare time doing.
Wow, right. Mm-hmm.
Yep, I mean, that's where my handle comes from, so hey, there you go. That's how long of a lasting impact it's had.
Like, my fondest slice of internet community from back then was probably the anime music video creators little kind of alcove that I was part of. It wasn't a huge community back then, but it was big enough to where, I mean, I by no means knew everybody, but there was a particular collective of them that called themselves Otaku Vengeance, as I mentioned a second ago, and they had a forum and just hanging out there, getting to know creators. That's where another creator sent me a cracked Wares copy of Adobe Premiere 5.1 over Instant Messenger, and so I too could make really shitty anime music videos.
Well,
and I have maybe they're on a long lost CD ROM, or I would totally post them for public consumption. And like
maybe this is time to go back to get honing that skill to make the Killers AMV for this particular episode.
God,
it could be done. It could be done.
Oh, I have the software and such to totally do it now, to do a shitty job of it. I'm up to the task.
I still need to do my AMV of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds with Land of the Lustrous.
Yes.
Because it really does fit.
I love it. Sorry about your Neopets, Emily.
They're not starved. They become sentient. They're just taking over the dark web.
It's so funny how like technological generations sort of play out, because Neopets was never a thing I was into, and I felt like it was something that people younger than me were into. But I don't think we're that far apart in age. Just like how you and I have the split over messenger clients.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, but
all right. So banana fish.
Should we get back on track?
We should. This nostalgia for that stuff is gone.
All right.
Also, Doc's face is melting.
Let's smile like we mean it. Let's roll.
Who says I don't? I always do, especially when I've got a mug of beer in my.
Save some face. All right, I'm gonna stop.
We'll be here all night.
Yeah. Okay. So, let us, before we get to 17, let's revisit
Twitter poll.
The Twitter poll.
Dun, 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 dun.
Well, I had them up, but then I created a new poll, and I scrolled up to do that. So I'm having to scroll down right now, and eventually I will get to our polls from last week. Both are landslide polls, and I'm glad of this. Did the special candy bar scene rule the hardest? 81% said hi. 19% said no, because I have no taste. It's fair of you to own up to it, 19%, and admit you're false.
To answer your question,
that.
Maglorian, having just joined us in chat, you missed us reminiscing about the days in which 56 kilobit modems were all the rage, and when AOL was something that you thought might actually be a good thing rather than a catastrophic error in judgment.
Yeah, old, like
more like America offline. Am I right? Cheers, everyone.
Would you believe I've never heard someone make that joke before? It's true. God. Oh, you're killing me. Oh, sweet Lord. Yeah. Little turn of the millennium internet history is all you missed. Poll, the second poll. Did you enjoy Max's slide down the stairs into dropkick? 93%, this might be our largest margin of victory ever, said it made me happy.
As it should do. It was glorious.
7% said no, in all caps. Who are you, 7%? Reveal yourselves now.
Fucking Russian trolls again. Seriously.
Yeah.
Is there nothing they will not ruin?
Oh. See, your IP addresses are all hailing from Cyprus.
Mira, are you going to dropkick them after sliding down the stair rail, though? That's the key question. That's the thing.
Oh, man, what good polls. We do a good show. I'm just gonna say
it.
We do a show I like. Let me rephrase that. All right. So, let's get on with it now. Let's go. Episode 17. Summary time. The Killers. Ash appears.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to read you the summary as I have it written directly in my notes. I'll try not to expound too much on these points. Who am I kidding? I'm a long-winded jerk. I'll expound. Ash versus Singh. Why is Ash doing this?
Excellent question. I fucking hell. I literally said in the previous stream of Fallout Widows, like, I'm so glad that Singh Suling is actually learning about the truth of Shorter's death. And that way it's not going to be a big deal like later. Like, it's not going to be some sort of weird misunderstanding. And Ash is like, no, not one of you dipshits has learned the truth. You can all hate me and blame me for Shorter's death. Now, I could speculate and say maybe he still hasn't quite resolved that issue with himself about his guilt. It was quite a complex situation. But there is the practical element of the fact that people might try to kill him for this.
Yeah.
Maybe you should want to get that out there. And then
it's an important fact.
Guilt aside, I don't know. But then again, I did find it appropriate that maybe Ash wasn't thinking straight, given he literally just got out of a mental asylum. So, it is kind of fitting.
Here's a thought that I had. So we've seen this kind of thing in several different anime. I mean, I feel like I've been seeing it for a long, long time. This kind of reluctance to use information to correct someone who's setting out down possibly wrong path. And I'm going to play this card that seems like a cop-out, and if anyone has any information, please tell me. But I'm just beginning to think that it may be something to do with kind of a philosophical, cultural kind of difference. Maybe there's some sort of deep aversion. I know that the Japanese people are fond of indirect communication rather than direct communication. Maybe there's some kind of aversion to alter someone's path once they've chosen it for themselves and set upon it. Like maybe there's not a lot of, oh, they're doing something wrong and I'm doing something right. And maybe it's more like They have their path and I have mine, and they've already set their mind to it. And like, but Eiji, you know, I think to the way I, of course, and you like view the world, he comes in and is like the one that makes the most sense. It just says it hurts not to be told the truth. And I feel like that's, I don't know, to my Western head, the simplest answer. And
to be fair though, there is a small moment later on in which Ash doesn't fully relay his feelings at the time, particularly on the subjects of his mother.
Eiji too.
So
yeah.
So, you know, as close as these two are, and as much shit as they've been through together, they've not yet quite, you know, become truly openly honest with each other. And one could even make the argument that there is not a single pair of people on the planet who are ever totally open with each other 100%. There are people always hide little things like, you know.
I mean, I guess it's what do you mean by open, right? I mean, I don't. I personally tend to think that like, how do I put this? That it's actually kind of unhealthy not to leave a part of yourself, like even if you're sharing your life with someone else, if you have a life partner and you're open, reciprocal, communicating, I think it's quite healthy for both of you to still have parts that are private in terms of your inner life from each other. I think that's it's how you attain you keep your individuality and personhood. You're not like just totally this nothing that's like poured out in someone else. You know what I mean? You still retain yourself and your sense of self.
Smallbell makes a good point. If he did tell the truth to the others about what happened with Shorter, then he would also have to explain what banana fish is. Now, I could make the counter argument that perhaps, you know, banana fish is not something that's easily within reach of, like, you know, the regular Joes that run in Ash's gang. But ultimately, we could nitpick this all day, and that's not really relevant versus the fact that Ash is making that decision based on that logic, which, on the face value of it right now, seems quite reasonable. Less people that know about it, at least in terms of, you know, of like the people he works with directly as opposed to the wider public, probably for the better. So yeah, that's a very valid point.
Yeah. But I'm dumb, Ash. You need to spell it out for me. You're smart. You're the smartest one of all of us. So I need you to help me, the plebeian, understand the motives of someone with over 200 IQ.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, in this episode, he does submit a dissertation.
That's right.
He does. He does. Like, he submits a dissertation on the chemical structure of this drug. He's fucking 17.
You wrote this yourself?
The only thing he should be interested in right now is, you know, what time does he get to play Fortnite with his friends? Or maybe that's just going too old, funnily enough. And, you know, what his next frat party's going to be. And yet this Wonder Kid, again, because Ash is awesome, is like, well, I'll fucking figure this out myself by going to the library. Which, to be fair, is a lot more than a lot of university students do, so I suppose at least he's actually doing that part right. I mean, I'll confess, I didn't go anywhere near as much to the library as I should have done when I was doing my psychology degree.
Oh, same. Hard same. I went quite a bit for my graduate philosophy, but again, I could have done more. Not nearly enough in undergrad, I'll tell you that.
You know, I wrote in undergrad that had nothing to do with undergrad. Novel.
Excellent.
That was a productive way to spend my time.
There you go. Okay. Hug him back. I have. Each word is capitalized. Slowly he does. He's coming back around to his, you know, he's thawing. Ash is thawing. He doesn't hug him in the beginning. He can't help it. Gotta hug him. We love the hugs. We're a pro hug podcast. I would hug Shadon if I could. I'd hug all of you if I could. And Ash and Eiji need to hug more. Golzine sees Lee sort of looking, you know, out of it. PowerPoint.
Oh my god, this fucking PowerPoint. This is great. I was like, this is somehow better than that It's Always Sunny episode where Charlie's like, the conspiracy. I'm like, holy I loved it. I loved every second of it. One small thing I want to note here, by the way, is that I love the camera work in this particular scene because this is just as a reminder. There was a scene in an earlier episode in which Liu Yong was actually tied up in bed, or rather in bed, naked for Golzin's pleasure at one point with Eiji there as well.
Yes.
And now look how things have changed. Look who now is actually calling the shots.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the severe and shallow camera angles of how it was leaning like down, pan towards Liu Yong, like with the table curved because of the angle it was at.
Mm-hmm.
It was very imposing.
Yeah.
So I loved how it even that helped build this little moment here of how, okay, yeah, you had me at your mercy previously, but now look who's calling the shots. Now look who's in charge. So I really like that. It's a small thing, but I appreciate it.
It's symmetry. Okay, we have Ash telling Eiji, it's better for me if you stay, which is a radical departure from his previous behavior. But the reason he gives is that he, of course, doesn't want to be consumed with worry for his friend while he's away, which is the biggest load of bullshit ever. Or should I just say the most incomplete answer? Why would you be so worried about him? Because you love him. Tell him what he's watching on. Yeah, he doesn't come out and tell the whole truth. So, let's see. I have Big Mansion written here. I don't know why. That's in the margin of my notes.
Is that your next house buying thing?
That's just the name of my forthcoming EP, indie rock EP, Big Mansion. Eiji and Ash talk on the ferry.
We skipped over a fair bit, actually.
Okay.
Because we talk also about the scene in which Yulong then discusses his goals and his plans with Golzin, and also reveals that he has probably a pretty intricate understanding of how Banana Fish was created.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So the reason that Yulong decided to bring Golzin round for a good old, afternoon PowerPoint session is that he's basically researched and understands the conspiracy behind the Corsican Foundation and Banana Fish pretty intimately now. He's done his homework, and if that's the theme of this entire show, it's do your research, kids.
That's right.
You will be if you do your homework properly and cite your sources correctly, not only will it get you a good, GPA, what is it, grade point average, GPA?
GPA.
Not only will it get you that, but it could also actually get you out of a bind with hardened criminals.
Yeah, you'll rise fast in the underworld if you do your research.
Yeah. So Yulong has a deal to offer to Golzin, which is that he will help deal with, Ash and get him out of the picture in exchange for something. And what is that? Fratricide. Killing every single member of his family and his bloodline. Every single one of them. The husbands, the wives, the children, even the dogs, the fucking pet lizards, the one with the fucking canary. All of it's going. Every single one of them gets butchered because Golzin's got the men to do it. And that's the deal. And wouldn't you know, that's actually what happens later in the episode. At least we get the hint of it's being underway.
What a disappointment. I thought, they were talking about poison in their garden later. I don't know. Were
you expecting him to handle it alone just by, his usual subterfuge?
Not Dino himself, but I just...
No, did you think Yulong was going to be doing that?
To his family? No. I guess... So my question is, why bring in the Golzin organization to do this if all they're going to do is kick a door down and shoot them with Tommy guns? Anybody can do that. Yulong can do that. That's not... It just seems inelegant.
I don't know.
And they just... There's got to be something more, something... I know seeing them dead is, his reason for being, but, it just doesn't doesn't feel very satisfying to me. I don't know.
Well, I've got two like spontaneous explanations I can offer. The first one is just more a practical one, which is that if he poisoned them, like the cops, they do postmortem, they think to themselves, okay, who could have poisoned? Who had access? Why would he do that? But if he just gets literally a group of people to burst in and shoot them, they're all the cops and such are going to look at him and think, nah, I can't. He's only a young lad. He's very effeminate. He's not, he's not going to do any of that sort of stuff. Just it deflects the blame away from him, makes it look like a bit of a smokescreen kind of.
I guess they don't even know. There's no record of him. They don't even know who. Like, he doesn't exist.
Well, they would at least be aware of him, see him around. But the other reason I would add, and this could be possibly a story development for later, is that maybe he ultimately couldn't do it himself. He had to abdicate the responsibility to someone else to be the trigger man. He could order someone to do it, but he couldn't actually kill his brothers himself. I mean, yeah, he did, of course, poison one with banana fish, certainly. But the outright acts of killing them,
he's going to keep them alive. So
maybe he couldn't actually bring himself to doing that. Maybe there's just that tiny fragment of humanity that stops him from doing it.
That would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That would be interesting.
Bear in mind what he said to Eiji, like, you won't dirty your hands, you won't do that. But the thing about Yu Lung is that a lot of the stuff that I've noticed tends to spot in other people that he feels is threatening, he also seems to admire. He's very dual-minded about this. This is the moon, insert your own thing. There you go. By the way, if you think my phases of the moon thing was off-kill, we actually get a confirmation, which I should have looked up, about the meaning behind Ash's name.
Oh,
so I mean, obviously we've had Aslan as well, the Hebrew word for dawn.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there you go. Good. So not only is the show like building like its own kind of motifs around animals, the lynx, Su Ling having the monkey on his jacket, Yu Lung probably
dragon.
A steak or something. Yeah, exactly. That kind of, and the dragon as well. Then there's also the celestial element to it.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
After all, a moon can only shine to prominence in the light of the sun. That's the only reason we see it.
It's true.
Moonlight is not products of the moon itself. So there you go.
There you go. So after the bargain is struck, we have Ash and Eiji talking on a ferry. Hello, Jeff. I have not seen you before on the channel, so welcome. And let's see. So they have this discussion about Ash's mother, right? And Eiji says, "Well, your mom, she must have loved you. She ensured that you got adopted, I guess, or whatever." And Ash starts to say, "Then why?" But he stops himself short. And I just have
one thing I want to add.
Oof in my notes.
Ooh, yeah. That's still a sore spot that he's not willing to quite let get out and air out just yet. One thing I want to say about the scene that made me chuckle is that they make a reference to Stephen King novels as being very kind of descriptive of rural environments in America, rural communities, which is accurate.
New York, L.A., Stephen King.
Big fuck all in between, yeah. But for me, having actually read Carrie at the very least, if there's one thing Stephen King books are, they're not travel logs. They're usually about fucks up shit happening.
Yes. Hey, that's right. Right.
I mean, I suppose it would be fair in Ash's character that he might not want to bring up such things as Pennywise, given his previous, fear of pumpkins and shit. He's obviously got a kind of a thing against the supernatural.
That's true. He also has a very deep and mostly correct sense of intuition. And so he relies on this to abort the meeting that he was going to have with Max, because something's off. He senses in the air, on a molecular level, I suppose. So, and he shares information with Max over the phone that seems to contradict the Dawson story of engineering it in a lab from scratch, that it's not entirely chemical, that there are these hallucinogenic plants that banana fish seems to have been drawn from. And I forget. So how does he come to this conclusion? I guess just reading the books, and the research he did in the library.
He just researched it. To be fair, this was kind of established with the Look Young scene, which he also said, like, here's this plant.
Exactly, in the greenhouse.
So they kind of did a primer of that. Actually. So I appreciate that for that setup there. If anything, again, it's to kind of drive home the parallel between the two characters that. Yeah. For all their different worldviews and their kind of rivalry, and they both are very on the level with taking their own angles towards.
Yeah, they both come to the same conclusions in different ways. Or different, maybe not different ways. Like they use similar means, but just at different locate. I don't know. Anyway, oh my God. I can't remember why there's a corpse on screen after this, but like at some point they do a transition from a corpse to like an enchilada, and it's like the grossest thing I've ever seen. It made me throw up in my mouth and need to take. It was awful, and I've seen a lot of gory shit in my day.
I just looked at that screenshot. I was like, I can't tell which of the two of them is more exhausted. He's look younger, his brother more tired. They both look like they're just really knackered. Yeah, it's true. But God, that like the corpse and the blood fading into that enchilada with the sets. It was terrible. Maybe it's meant to be a metaphor or an allegory for because this is Kippard, isn't it? Senator Kippard. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's meant to be an allegory for how he consumes people and how he's a kind of tie into him having blood on his hands with all he's done. Yeah, no, that makes sense. It was just disgusting. But hey, I mean, you achieve your aims, so good on you. Yeah. To be fair, his brother wasn't actually. To be fair, his brother, like, he wasn't actually, dying. He'd just been out doing ketchup sales that day. He just happens to have some samples on him. Oh my God, this fucking like, I died like, and this show, it really did. I feel like lean into the action movie trappings when, from the rubble of all the dead politicians emerges the Lee family. The Leaf person, is it Hualing, Huali, that's gonna be the next candidate for president. This is the thing. Like, this is what the villains are after in these movies. Oh wait, holy shit! That's just made me realize: could Banana Fish potentially be the prequel to the Manchurian Candidate? Absolutely. I think there's no question. Fucking busted that shit up for you right there. Oh my God. And I don't know why, it just made me, it just felt, for some reason, it felt very action movie-ish, like, dude is killing presidential candidates so he can be the presidential candidate. Also, there's a scene here, later when, Max and Ash are talking, and Ash says, that he'll strangle Kippard. Max says nothing. Max just lets it go. Like, he's totally cool with it. I think at this point, just realized that he could protest against Ash doing stuff, and it's not going to. Like, you can't stop Ash doing for whatever he wants. So I suppose it's kind of moot voicing it. I mean, there is also the joke with AG, when he says, like, oh, I'm going prostitutes. He's like, oh, that's nice, honey. Bye. Like, in the same way that, you say that to your kids, like, I'm okay, Mom. I'm going out for a while. I'm going drinking. Bye. I'm like, that's nice, honey. Enjoy. Yeah, I'll strangle with my own hands. Well, let's talk more about that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's just hoping he'll forget about it. But it just seems irresponsible because, Ash is not going to forget about it. He's going to kill people. He's done it before. He'll easily do it again. Mm-hmm.
I found that very amusing. Do you mind doing me a favor, Shadon, and looking up whether or not that Lee is going to it was in fact running for U.S. president, or if I fucked that up. Tallulah I read it as something different. So,
well, I'm actually at the. Let's see.
While you do that, I'll
no, I can tell you actually, because
okay.
I've actually got the episode playing right now.
Yeah.
On the news ticker, it says the sudden death of its president Lee Hsien-loong. So it can't obviously. Lee Hsien-loong is obviously not the current president.
Okay, my fault. That's my bad.
The president of the bank.
Okay, my bad. Not as funny now. I guess they are reporting on whatever like fucking front of a business that they're using.
Thank you, Abs Network.
Yes.
By the way,
big abs.
Can I just mention we also got our Windows analog, which was called Foursquare. That was in like the scene in the library, which was just magnificent. Mwah, chef's kiss. Foursquare for a fucking name of a Windows OS replacement. That's amazing.
That was good. That was extremely good. I think was it called Foursquare? Because there's an actual app called Foursquare that's used to like basically. I think it's got what is the word I'm looking for? Geolocation and shit, where you basically sign in and you tell the world so and so has just arrived in this place. That's what Foursquare was. I don't think anybody uses it anymore. Jeff totally points out like the correction, like echoes the correction you just made that that they I actually didn't know that the company that they ran was a bank. So yeah, Yulung obviously is pushing for the one brother he's going to keep alive, Hua Li, to run things in a public fashion, to be the figurehead, the face, while Yulung maintains everything for realsies in the shadows.
I want to imagine what those stockholders conferences are going to be like.
And I figured that was the. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I want to imagine what those stockholders conferences are like. With his brother there. It's like, so what's your investment plan for the year? Just fantastic.
Beautiful. So sticking with it as is.
He's our best leader ever. Best company ad ever.
Yeah.
Doesn't say a fucking word.
No, and I thought I figured that was the puppet and puppeteer. Like, that's obvious. That's the nature of their relationship at this point, now that he's been banana fished. But I was just mistaken about the president of what. That was my fault for not reading carefully. Okay, so Ash though he's having a bit of a crisis, and this really I like the fact that this scenario he's kind of in right now is really rocking him, that he's sort of lived by his trusting his intuition, his instincts. They have not let him down heretofore, and he's leaned on them to get around and get by and size up different situations and always make the most prudent choices for his survival, but it's failing him now for whatever reason.
I wish this was more concrete, though, because him sensing someone being there,
but then they're not there.
But then nothing really happens. And yet somehow he has this preternatural sense that this is worse than usual, worse than the times in which he's encountered people who might have followed him previously. Like, he doesn't ever explain why this person following him, in concrete terms, why this person following him is more dangerous than any other run-of-the-mill person that might have tried to come after him. I mean, he doesn't coach in terms like with Arthur, for example.
I suppose, like, imagine he can rely on this as you and I can rely on any of our other five senses, and then to discover that. I mean, I don't even know if he knows someone is following him for sure. I think he just knows, like, that his sort of electromagnetic sixth sense radar, like, whatever it is is no longer functioning 100% reliably, and he's scared. And that's, I think that's understandable that would freak him out.
I get that, but to me it feels kind of very in there to make it be a setup for the new character that comes in to point out he's bad news. I'm like, okay, but could we not do this in a more concrete way than simply having some sort of like, psychic influence on Ash or wherever it is that just makes him freak out? Well, what was
Oh yeah, so it wasn't. I think that I read it as not psychic influence. I read it as
I'm not talking like
later,
literally like that. I'm not talking literally like psychos. Okay. I'm just saying that it came across as very abstract for me. And I
see that.
I think as well, because we did actually see hints of this person being there, it might have been better if we didn't see any hints of them at all. And then, maybe Ash is getting paranoid a little bit. Maybe his concerns might be a little unfounded.
So that's what I thought was happening.
Well, no, there were like insert shots of the gentleman in question walking away at various points, which Ash never ran actually fine. So I'm thinking,
he never sees that.
If they just cut those little shots out entirely, because now that Age is back with him, obviously his concern is heightened. And maybe he's being overprotective, over worrying. He's off guard because Age is with him, something like that.
That's interesting.
Something about this just rung very, very false to me. Because this new character that's coming in now, people warn me about this or rather advise me of this ahead of time. And I tend to have a kind of concern about characters being introduced in the 11th hour in any given story. Usually you should get your players on stage really early on. Now, I understand, of course, that Banana Fish ran for a long time and ran in various chapters, so it had more license to, bring in characters over time. But in the show, bringing this character in as a challenger to Ash, again, I think speaks to the grand problem of the show that I've expressed before, which is that he's too good. So since the existing cast members aren't good enough to deal with him, we have to bring in someone new, and we have to establish immediately why he's a problem, even if it's in a way that feels very abstract like this.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I think you're just biased, though, because you don't know what it's like to lose your sixth sense. So I think that's what's happening.
Oh, my sixth sense is, how best to mash out in Guilty Gear.
Yeah, I mean, what if that left you? What if that left you?
It would probably have actually meant I won more games, to be honest. So there is that. Anyway, we'll go into more in the character. Later, because there is one particular line I picked out.
Not much later. Like we can talk about it now, really, because the next thing in my notes is Blanca.
Sadly, not green.
A green man with the red chest hair, and we don't get to hear every time he's on screen the.
I'm so sad, by the way, that Blanca's introduction was not set to like moody jazz, and that he's not just there smoking a cigarette, like. Cold night, and I sensed the lynx was out.
Is it just because of the outfit?
Well, there's something very film noir about his design that I actually really like. Yeah. I'm just so sad it wasn't accompanied by like big game, big city.
Big game.
Big city.
Oh man! And here I was just wanting someone to say Brazil and have a little plane fly across the screen. That's really no. If Blanca was to arrive in the show, he should have traveled by map. There should have been like a scene of like the Doc traveling from Brazil to New York. Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. And when he walks around, he's got a tiptoe around like Blanca's walking animation. It must be.
Yeah. Needs more film noir though.
It does. I mean, everything does, to be fair. So
this is true.
He talks to Dino, right? Clearly, Dino approaches him, or he approaches Dino. They know each other. And he says that he initially came to decline his offer. Apparently, he was in retirement, drowning in a pile of books or something. Dino's surprised he came. Says, like, I just, initially came to, like, decline your offer, but boy.
Can I say how much I'd have loved it if he actually said, I'm declining your offer, and he never appeared in the show again?
That'd be amazing. That'd be fucking great.
That'd be great.
That trench coat is boss. Lulabelle.
Oh, one other thing. So earlier in the episode, Dino is actually talking on the phone to someone saying, "I've got the perfect man for the job." As he's saying this, the camera cuts to the right and we see a bottle of wine.
Mm-hmm.
It has a trilby hat on the label.
Yeah.
Which is what he wears. I'm like, that was incredible. That was fucking brilliant. Well, don't even say to that.
For some reason, he made me think of... I know people talk about Kimberly from Full Metal Alchemist. He made me think of the immortal guy from Giant Robo who wears the pink trench coat.
Yeah.
I think he's originally from Tetsujin 28. But
well, to be fair to Blanca, like, you know, I mean, if anyone is going to take down Ash Lynx, it's probably the guy who recovered the Maltese Falcon.
This is good. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm not yawning at your joke. I'm just sleepy. It's a funny joke. There's not enough Maltese Falcon humor on YouTube, so I'm happy to add to.
I'm doing my part.
Yes, to add to that repository. But you know, Blanca, he says like, look, I'm actually really interested now in the subject, in the child. You know, so I'm gonna take your offer, and the child did not recognize Blanca, even though it turns out he's the one who taught him everything he knows.
This was something that threw me off a little bit. I like,
so how big is his IQ?
It's over 9.
It's over. Yeah, thank you. Waiting on that. Check. Boy. Yeah. Well, and then he reveals this because Ash is, using his sexual charms and ways to get into the bedroom of Mr. Kipado, and that's where, like, so in my notes I have, how did he not recognize him, right? I mean, you'd feel like Kipper spent so much time trying to kill this kid that they would have a picture of him in the meeting, but apparently not.
There are two reasons, two explanations. One, he was Clark Kenting. It
right,
runs on
the glasses, yeah.
So
but he took them off. I mean, he took them off after he came in the house. I guess at that point he's just too horny.
At that point, all the blood had rushed out of Kipper's head somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, second reason, if there's one thing I've learned in this show, is that everyone's horny for Ash all the time, and that all logic, checks, concerns, they go out the window. I mean, Kipper should have been like, wait a minute, you're not the person I asked for. I don't give two rat shits whether or not, you're there in his stead, or how good you are, or, anything. Get the fuck out. He's like, no. Too stupid to live, as it turns out.
Taught you everything you know, but not everything I know, says Emily. That's correct. That's always the way. Got to keep back a few of the secrets. As we talked about any healthy relationship. So Ash is in the middle of blackmailing Kippard to get some information. What information was he trying to cajole out of him? Do you remember?
The identity of the person who is at the top of the conspiracy.
Okay, so who's
Kippard Goldstein. To answer your question, Mira, I don't think that Dino saw him everything, but I was under the impression that he put him in contact with various individuals who obviously honed him and taught him all the skills that he has. So I got the impression that there was either a combination of Dino teaching, like probably the etiquette and protocol related stuff with the wine and whatnot, and of course he had the actual marksman teaching that stuff. Well, the way it was phrased to me, Blanca's like, well, I taught him everything he knows. I'm like, really? This is out of nowhere. Anyway.
So I thought he learned it all from Arthur and then just surpassed him.
No, I'm kidding.
No. Yeah, no, I mean, I actually, I just didn't think about it, to be quite honest with you. I just kind of took Dino's words at face value and was like, yeah, sure, file that away for later. Move on with the story. But I'm theoretically, I mean, I'm joking about it or whatever. I'm fine with there being a master killer or whatever. That's totally fine. Hi, Blue Sea. Yeah. So he's trying. Ash is to extract the information, and then as he's about to, right at that moment, for supreme dramatic effect, Kippert is sniped from what seems to be an impossible distance away by the aforementioned Blanca.
Are you drawing a blank on it?
Indeed. You've thrown me.
Sorry.
and this is all during the credits, I think, and this is where he says, I taught that kid everything he knows. So yeah, we're left at the end of the episode with a new rival for Ash to tangle with. Dino and Yutlung apparently were not enough. Or the author didn't want to push those yet, or wasn't happy with the scenarios that either one presented. To be fair, like, he's kind of already thwarted plenty of Dino's schemes. So, and was it Dino or Yutlung that sent the killer after him in the hospital? It had to be Yutlung, because Dino doesn't actually want to kill him. The nurse or whatever that tried to put the drug in his arm.
I think it was either Kippert or the general guy.
Oh no, yeah, that's right. That was, yeah, you're right. It was those people. So that doesn't
Them
count.
dudes.
Them dudes. Yes, the committee of them dudes. But look, that was the episode. And we're gonna, I guess, get into a few more talking points about it. But before we do that, we're going to take a small break. Gonna mute me mic and see you guys on the other side. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs. We are back. Thanks
Indeed.
for sticking with us for a couple minutes during that break. So, talking points. Shadon, why don't you go first?
Right, okay.
トーキングポイント
This is one I had been planning to save until the end of the series, but I think it's probably about time I threw it in now. You know what it is. So, let's talk about... Yep. Talk about that particular subject matter. Specifically, I'm talking about it in how it's utilized narrative.
Wait a minute. What are we talking about?
Rape.
Oh, the RO. Okay.
Rape.
Okay.
Right. So, the reason I'm bringing this particular topic up is because I've seen it discussed recently in terms of another show that shall not be named because it sucks balls. I've been just having a think recently about how you utilize that subject matter in fiction, because it's not something you can treat lightly.
We're talking about this because it's ever present in Banana Fish.
Oh, of course, absolutely. Because to be honest, this episode has let me kind of lie on some points. Again, it feels very functional. We did get some bits and bobs here and there that have established more points about the characters, such as Ash's mother, but we have to save those for later. For the most part, it's really more again about Yutlung and Ash's dichotomy. They're all progressing their own plans. We've got the introduction of Blanca, which is, it's fine, but I do have issues in the fact that it just seems like they're putting it in there to give Ash a genuine threat at this late hour, but that's not a function of the problem, my perspective. So why I'm bringing this up, here's the thing, right? To me, playing rape in fiction is like preparing fugu, which is the Japanese blowfish, meal. You can prepare it right, you do it properly, and it's fine. But otherwise, it's absolute poison for you. It ruins it. It's not something you can treat lightly. It's not something you can just throw in to motivate a character, especially if they're not the victim. So, here's the thing, right? I am of the opinion that I think Banana Fish would be better off if Golzine had never actually raped Ash in the first place or even sexually abused him. And I'll tell you why I think that is, because all throughout this show, since we learned that fact, Golzine's had his own stuff going on, and we've had moments where they've tried to put him on the right side of things, quote unquote, like with Baron von Russian. But every time that happens, I'm like, no, fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
You're a one-dimensional piece of shit who rapes children. Fuck off. I've got no interest in hearing anything about you as a character. He's not an interesting villain. I mean, yes, he has harmed Ash deeply, and the thing is, I would be okay with it if Ash, his trauma from that was then developed along the lines of how he interacts with Eiji, but the show is not interested in that. The material's not interested in that. It's not willing to go into the sexual side of things. So we've got kind of a catch-22 here, where it'd be fine if it did that, but it doesn't. So why is it there? Because
maybe the not going into that side of things is the position that they're taking, right?
What do you mean by that?
I think we've mentioned it before that
because it propositions that the healthy relationship is the one that isn't sexual.
Yeah, that it's maybe they're not saying all healthy relationships, but they're putting this kind of platonic love on the plane of the ideal, and as contrasted with all the other filthy shit.
Okay,
which is not a point of view that I particularly like, but maybe that's maybe they are dealing. Maybe that's the dealing with it. I don't know.
Yes, but the problem is that the characters don't ever speak. Like Ash doesn't speak about why he keeps Eiji at the length he does. Because of that, it's just a thing that is.
Read between the pumpkins.
Yeah, yes.
I'm kidding.
But the thing is, as well, is you can't make light of this sort of stuff. Like, it's something that we would expect in fiction to be talked about and developed. For it to be quite raw.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of has just been a background element. So the reason I've also thought of this is I was watching, believe it or not, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 5 recently.
Oh, I can believe it.
Oh, you can believe it. So Jono in that show, like in the very first episode, notes how there was a gangster who actually looked after him. But he was a gangster. He was still a criminal. And that made me think, this show might have been better off for it if Golzine had never done that to Ash specifically. Maybe he had done it to other kids or people, but not him. And then there could be some kind of conflicts involved in there, in like, okay, this is my mentor, my, steward. He looks after me, he's raised me. He's got me involved in criminal shit, fine. But he's never actually actively harmed me or hurt me. Not like the baseball coach guy, who we might remember from the episode in Cape Cod. So
I remember, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that the way that Ash's trauma has been portrayed, the way he's been hurt, has not been compelling to watch, has not made me feel a response to it. It absolutely has. But that's been it. And its functioning here is to make Golzine to be a bastard. But the thing is, to me, the strongest way in which he proved he was a bastard beyond that was with what he did to Shota. That was very personal. That was very effective. It was a character that we, the audience, knew. And we got to see him twisted and, set loose like a wild animal firsthand. It broke my heart to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need that in there. And I think it's one of those things where I think, like, Banana Fish being a product of its time, I can understand maybe they didn't want to go into the sexual side of things because that was not a thing that was done at the time. It was sufficient for the time, maybe you might want to argue, but it isn't anymore. I mean, I've heard that argument bandied about, say, for example, Steins Gate and how it treats trans issues. At the time, it might have been viewed as a good, or at least a progressive thing, but is now wholly insufficient. Not ill-natured, certainly, but it's just not enough, not even remotely.
Yeah.
And I think that might speak to one of the things about the adaptation that I'm finding to be problematic, in that they have clearly taken the time to update the context, like cell phones, social media. In fact, it's 2012 the year. All that kind of stuff. But what we're not seeing is an update of the sensibilities. And I don't think it would be against the spirit of the work for it to tackle that particular material with Ash and AJ. Now, I will stress, by the way, that I am of the opinion that you have to present rape in a very particular way in fiction in order for it to not basically trash your work. It doesn't do that with Banana Fish because it is still very much about Ash's plight. That's the main thing. The focus should always be on the victim and what they do to recover, at least in my opinion. And it is, to an extent, which is more than I can say for a lot of other shows where they've had that happen, where it's just been because bad guy is bad, because the writers are unimaginative. I mean, to me, using it casually speaks to me of being very unimaginative about how you handle what happens to particularly female characters. Not, of course, again, it doesn't happen to men, as it does in this show. But that's one thing. I think that also I should point out that I'm not in any position to state on behalf of anyone else how rape should be treated. That's just my perspective. I kind of just have a very distasteful reaction to it. And I had similar feelings towards Gunbuster when they had that attempted rape scene. I was like, why is that here? Why couldn't I have something like that? Sorry, Diebuster, you're right. Where we went too far. In Berserk's case, I was okay with it because it firstly wasn't front-loaded. It was kind of the end point of a long fall from grace for a character that, while I absolutely and unequivocally, morally and ethically did not agree with, I could at least understand how they came to that point. That being Griffith, of course. But I don't think that Banana Fish handles the subject matter well because it treats it as a background element to Ash's trauma, to what's happened to him. But then isn't either A, willing to show us it's only told about, and maybe that's fine, maybe it is something that can learn with its own, maybe it's more accurate to reality. But secondly, it doesn't then actually then deal with the healing from that, or like the issues it would obviously cause a person to have with intimacy, with relationships. I mean, we got a tiny touch of that in this episode, to be fair, with the hug.
Right.
But I think that maybe one of the things that this adaptation should have done was taken greater strides in perhaps updating it for more modern sensibilities and being more in depth with that subject matter to at least justify why Golzine does that as far as the narrative is concerned. Because otherwise you could eject it entirely and it would actually make the show more complex as a result, because I would at least look at Golzine and not immediately think, fuck you, Chrome Dome. So...
Chrome Dome. He's in the Ninja Turtles insults. I love it. But, like, I mean, he would still be, fuck you-able, because he turned a boy into a hardened criminal. I mean, that's pretty heinous, you know.
But that speaks to my perspective on using rape as a thing in fiction, because it, to me, smacks usually of being very lazy as far as writing is concerned. Now, I stress I'm not thinking that in the case of Banana Fish, but there have been a lot of works, not just Japanese, but Western as well over the years, where rape happens to someone, and it's used mainly because the writers don't have the intelligence or the imagination to think of something else. They just go straight for, what's the most awful thing I know of that happens to women? Right. Yeah.
And, so, you know, and to your point, you know, by not adequately depicting the fallout, they don't really understand how painful and traumatic it is. They have this very cursory, at a distance kind of knowledge.
Yeah. To be fair, neither do I. I'm not pretending to know any more than anyone else on this. But I just think, I'm not saying that you have to have experiential knowledge of it to write about it. I just mean, I think you can gain a lot from reading and talking to people about it, and studies, and you know, there's insight and there's a lot of you know, behavior and psychology that you can read about that would occur. For sure.
Do you think? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, that's the reason I made the fugu analogy before. Funnily enough, it's about the closest thing I could think of is in terms of like how precise you have to be to get it right, how thoughtful you have to be of it. In Banana Fish's case, I would say it's kind of there. It's not fatal, but the more I thought about it as time has gone by, the more I realized it doesn't actually help Golzine's complexity as a villain at all. It actually makes him less complex. I understand that he obviously has this complicated relationship to Ash as a result, but because Ash is not, you know, just going into depth on the trauma side of it, it doesn't really justify its presence, in my opinion, versus taking it out and having that conflict that would develop that, like, well, I know he's doing all this awful shit to people, and yes, he did that to Shaw, but he has also sheltered me and looks after me all the time. I'm not saying we should necessarily humanize him, of course, but I'm just saying that you could have that dichotomy like there was in that very brief insert in JoJo's Part 5 episode. There are different ways you could do this, essentially, that I think would be for the betterment, depending either way of the show.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think showing Ash as a survivor, as someone who has hardened himself or built himself up to be not only someone who functions and is competent in his world, but like at the pinnacle of his world, basically, like, do you think that is in some way a sort of positive thing that they're doing here, that, like, you know, he's been violated in this way, like he's been dehumanized in this way, but it's not stopped him from achieving? And I know his life, you know, I mean, I don't want to say leading a full life or being happy, because he's not any of those things, and that has a lot to do with it, but boy, I don't know. As I make the argument out loud, it sounds a little hollow, but I don't know. Maybe it holds some water.
Well, to go one thing, what you said there, he is very much also in control of his own sexuality, using it for his own ends, such as he did with Kippard in this episode.
Right.
That's certainly a thing. But I think that, you know, given that the relationship between it is, like, you know, one of the biggest attractions of this particular work, I think that the adaptation would have benefited immensely from actually delving into more detail on, rather than leaving it in its very 1980s sensibilities as it originally was. I don't think, because the thing is, like, for adaptation, when you do adaptation, I'm of the opinion you can and should take creative liberties with it, as long as it remains true to the spirit of the work in question. Now, that's my perspective, and there will always be people who think it should be a very pure thing. It should be as close to one-to-one as possible. Or conversely, my people who fly in the other way think, no, do whatever you want. And for me, keeping it to the spirit of the work, I think, is important. I think that the entire show's arc for Ash is him getting out of this situation, out of this trap he's in. He describes himself as the Lynx. He mentions the Kilimanjaro stuff. He wants to go back to a natural environment in which he can truly be free. And that, I think, is a fine arc. I think it's been fantastic, absolutely. But I also think it's been incomplete versus the various bits and bobs we've had about Golzine and his past, with his sexual abuse. I don't think it goes far enough. I think it's holding the show back from being truly a masterpiece in my, along with, ironically, the Ash is too good at everything problem.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said about Blanca. Like, Blanca to me, I'm curious to see like what happens next with Blanca. But I am also very much of the opinion that the reason I brought up the, Dino time everything knows, and that's why it surprised me, is because that forms again part of the relationship conflict between the two. Like Dino said so many times, I've given him everything. Why does he not grateful to me? Why is he not under my thumb? Why is he not follow me? And if that had a half truth to it, which would be, I mean, I'm obviously not expecting Golzine to be the one teaching Ash how to do things like knife fight. That's ridiculous. He's not big fucking boss. Let's put it that way.
Get over here. Bring your switchblade.
I get that. But I think that Blanca's introduction actually weakens the show a little bit because it feels like a confession that we need to have an antagonist that can fight Ash on an even keel. But it then takes away some of the relationship between Golzine and Ash that actually works really well, which is Golzine's misguided understanding of, what is owed. I mean, interesting, random comparison here, but let me throw it out. Who here has watched the various Guardian of the Galaxy movies and also Infinity War?
Not I. Sorry.
Okay, so Thanos, right? Big purple space monster.
Mm-hmm.
He's called the Grimace. He looks like a giant purple ball sack, and he's got the Infinity Gauntlet that can wipe out his blah-de-blah-de-blah. He has an adopted daughter named Gamora, and he raises her to be one of the best assassins in the galaxy. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and he actually says in Infinity War, I raise you to be the most feared woman in the galaxy. And Gamora's response is basically, it wasn't worth it. You tortured me and my adopted sister. So that, to me, gave that film, simple as it was, a bit more nuance to its relationships. So having Blanca come in and be like the person who taught Ash and takes credit for it in particular, I think weakens that element of Golzine and Ash's relationship that does work.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so a few points on that is I really like the theme of what do children owe their parents. That is extremely resonant. And I think it sounds like it works in the Avengers movies quite well. But man, it's really hard to see Dino as that for Ash. So I feel like if that was kind of what they were going for, then they failed there, because at no point do I think of Dino as a surrogate father or anything like that for Ash. I just have always thought of him as an abuser.
Yeah, well, that's why it ties back to me saying that you could eject the rape from it and actually would make the situation more complex without you having to change any of the actual lines, really. Apart from removing the references like Ash makes to doing it.
Having said that, I do understand why Golzine feels that despite, him not learning how to knife fight and snipe by his own hand, that Ash still owes him because, he paid for that dog's training classes. Just because he's not the dog trainer.
Buy him a flash car. All the all the material gifts he's bestowed on him certainly are another thing.
Yeah, and he if it wasn't for Golzine, there would be no Blanca in Ash's life.
Indeed. But again, to boil it back, this is why I find it problematic, because Golzine can make these statements all I want, and all I keep going back to is, you raped him. Shut the fuck up. It's a brick wall.
It evokes a visceral reaction. To be sure.
Yeah, but it actually weakens the work as a result, in my opinion.
These concerns are easily resolved if you guys read the manga. Fair enough. After, not now. We want to judge this adaptation on its own merits.
Indeed.
Because it should stand alone. It should stand on its own and not require the reading of the manga, in my opinion. I think I agree with everything you said about adaptation, and we talked plenty on this podcast about adaptation. And just to complete the circle of what you said, being true to the spirit of the material and everything, it should also, in my opinion, adaptation should stand alone. That can be a hard line to walk in the sort of modern anime landscape when mixed media projects and product tie-ins abound. And but even back in the day of the OAV, late 80s, early 90s, that stuff was happening quite a bit. So, but it's still a rule that I firmly maintain and hold to, that a good adaptation should stand alone and not require you to read the source material to gain a full appreciation of it. Okay.
Just to answer School Bell's comment there, you're exactly right when I say, Golsey make his various points and your reaction is, fuck you, die in a fire, all those various visceral reactions. You're entirely correct, but I don't think that the show benefits from having that background of his interactions with Ash. I think it makes him more one-dimensional. So because of the fact we keep running into that particular reaction, it's immediate. It makes everything he says irrelevant. You can't consider for a moment that there's any merit of truth to it, because that conquers all. It bypasses all.
Are you of the opinion that good villains must be somewhat sympathetic?
I'm of the opinion that good villains, when they're making statements like that, shouldn't have another elements of their history or backstory completely and utterly black it out to the point where it doesn't matter if they say it or not.
Right. Okay, so you're saying you don't think Golzine is a good villain, and ultimately that hurts the show. That's why. Yeah. Not that anybody reacting to it revulsively is incorrect. That's entirely
no. That's
correct.
Entirely intentional, and that's merited. And like I say, I think the fact that the way Ash has conveyed his pain and the way he's reacted to all this happening has genuinely touched me. I've felt for that. I have.
Yes.
But it's not then following through on that. Part of healing from a grievous wound, in my opinion, is to firstly get it out there why you're hurt. To weep, to cry, to sob, to fight, to punch, to swear, all that kind of stuff. And he's done that. What's the next step? As far as Banana Fish is concerned, I don't know.
It can be hard to complete the steps when you're being pursued, though.
Well, this is true, but I'm saying there have been moments of downtime in which he might want to explore that with Aid. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm going back to the idea of them dealing into the sexual trauma realm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should stress as well, I don't think Golzine is strictly speaking a bad villain. I just think that out of the villains in the show, even though he is the primary antagonist, the one who holds the most attention for me easily is Lu Young.
Yeah, 100%.
By a country mile.
Love Yu Lung, for sure.
Because he's clearly he's clearly the parallel version of Ash, but also interesting in his own way. He has his own traumas to deal with. Mm-hmm. And indeed, funnily enough, what Lu Young is doing with killing his family, that is him dealing with his traumas as it happens. Yeah. Not a course of action we ultimately agree with. And I think the show would have benefited if Ash had been dealing with his own traumas, in a more positive way, rather than not really at all. Because then they could have contrasted. You see how this kind of feels like it's.
I think that there's still, yeah. I mean, I think that there's still plenty of room for him, and someone could make a case that he's still in the process of accepting them. Because, and then you have your moon to Ash's son, Yu Lung, who is not accepting them, who is defending against them and running from them and killing them, and ultimately that sort of thing will consume you if you don't accept them. Acceptance is the only way to ultimately resolve yourself and be at peace. And yeah, they're taking these kind of opposite, divergent paths. I hear what you're saying about the need for some more clarity on that. I do think that, I think you could probably argue that's there, though. You know what I mean? That you could argue that Ash is on the path to acceptance and Eiji's helping him. But as always, I mean, that's the part of the show I always want more of, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It feels insufficient. They clearly have the germ of an idea here of pathway for it. But I mean, they even started early hints of it, like with the cop touching Ash on the shoulder. This is the thing that I then pointed out in the previous episode where something similar happens and it's just kind of played for comedy. Even though that, to me, felt like a very, very clear starting point for a character arc or a character element about how it's affected him, just being touched by people. So that hasn't been followed through really at this point. Now, there are episodes left, I will confess, and I'm not going to, hold it against the show yet, but I want to get out there now because it's been kind of nagging me for a while.
It's been percolating in your mind.
Yeah, and with recent shows that will be coming out, which I've had discussions with people who I will be frank talking about, in which they trivialize the element of rape in fiction. I just thought, you know what, let's talk about it. Let's actually fucking talk about it in this show, because it is here.
Yeah.
He did salute a bell, but the thing is, there's
murderer.
hugs and then there's hugs. Like, there's, I don't know. I would have thought at this point, this many episodes into the show, it might have been something a bit more than that.
You wanted to see him fucking...
No. Pillow talk would have been fine. I'd have been okay with it. Something more intimate than that. I mean, bear in mind, if they are sleeping in the same room, they are still sleeping in separate beds as well. So, platonic is the word of the day here. I would...
Listen, I'd be fine if they were having sex. I want them to go there. I want them to go there.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying again, I think this is just a function of the material's time, and it hasn't necessarily aged that well relative to what we might need right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I will also, just again, remind people, as a cishet guy, I cannot speak on behalf of LGBTQ plus people on what is sufficient representation or what is sufficient for someone's, for relationships or depiction thereof.
That's a good point.
So don't take it from me solely. Speak to people.
You have to get to this level to be for real. Like, we don't want to sort of in a misguided effort to be pro this, sort of enforce a standard upon it that doesn't need to be there. Yeah.
So
that's entirely fair. That's a good point.
So too long didn't read. If I'm talking shit to you, and it sounds like I'm talking shit, I probably am. But anyway, that's basically my elongated talking point here. I think that for me, I generally speaking don't really like rape being used in fiction the way it is a lot of times these days. It's usually a motivating device for another character to go do something. And usually it smacks of laziness. It smacks of crassness. It smacks of treating it like... And I don't think that's the case with Banana Fish. I genuinely don't. Because they've taken a lot of time in the earlier episodes particularly to show that it has hurt Ash quite severely, as you would expect. But we don't then, to my opinion, really see what follows on from that in a way that would feel like it's a complete depiction and understanding of how one heals from such trauma.
Yeah.
It feels more like if you wanted to take away the message from here that if you've been abused as a child in such a manner that the best relationship you can have is one in which your significant other never touches you intimately or is intimate with you in any other way, basically shut you off from that world of experience, I would disagree with
bad.
you.
That's what I don't want the message to be.
I would disagree with you that Banana Fish says that, but I also want immediately be able to write it off.
Yeah, Banana Fish does good, but it could have done better. I think that's the best nutshell. Yeah, but that's not a reason to vilify Banana Fish, and I hope that's not what we're coming across.
No.
We're just kind of thinking out loud about how we would have liked it to be better. But I still think, much with... I cut this part from the podcast we recently put out, but there's an Ursula K. Le Guin a book called The Left Hand of Darkness, in which it is meant to be very progressive about gender. But, 50 years ago, time has not been kind to the book in terms of just there are some essentialist flubs. And the same, is true for Banana Fish. It wanted to do well, but but
just
things
to your point, Sam, mirror into the belt. I don't either. I'm just playing devil's advocate here for someone who might want to pitch that as kind of like the overarching, or even maybe the under the radar idea that it's putting out there, intentional or no. I'm just thinking
you
along
could
the
make a
lines that
case. I think you could make a case.
I would disagree wholeheartedly with it. I'd think that it's bollocks, but I can at least understand how you might get to thinking that point given what's presented on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's my talking point on that. I have nothing else to say now.
Okay.
I'm done.
All right, well,
I'm done.
ネクストポイント
I also only have one, and maybe we can spend a lot of time on this also. But the Ash and Eiji conversation on the ferry about Ash's mother. So, boy, I really thought this was interesting. Up there with the Lynx business on the mountain, maybe not quite reaching those heights, but still I thought extremely good, and there's a lot you could take away from this scene about the character of Ash and his, remaining insecurities. I thought it was really interesting that when Eiji said, "Of course your mother loves you," Ash's kind of gut instinctual reaction is to go, "Yeah, but why did she?" And then he kind of cuts himself off, and we know from later in the episode, Ash is a man who deeply trusts intuition, and his life is governed by his instinct, and yet he cuts his own instinct off here. And why is that, right? Like, why does he not want to explore? And I think, it's just extremely painful is the answer, right? Like, why did my mom leave me? That's fucking just incredibly difficult to deal with.
You could make the argument that there's always this thing about blaming root causes. And a lot of what's happened in Ash's life, you could, if you wanted to, although I would disagree because I think it's individual actors that but if you wanted to make the argument that a whole of the shit that's happened in his life stems in some way from his mum leaving him, that's, again, much like the argument I presented before, I would not agree with. I would understand how you arrived at that point. And maybe that's, for him, how he feels about it. That he perhaps portions the blame for everything that's happened since then on his mother, rather than necessarily putting all of it on the people who've done it. Like, Golzine rapes him, so that obviously is mostly Golzine's fault. But then how did I get to this position which I allowed this to happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
Where does it all boil back to? Where's the root? Where's the gnarled, poisonous root of everything? So that's one way that you could look at it, although I, again, would say that I don't agree with that perspective. I can understand how someone might feel that way, especially if they, had such traumatic experience happen to them. It's very easy to go right back to the source as the one thing that you blame all of your problems on.
Yeah, gosh. This is just a very base level, hard question. And I can understand not wanting to confront it. Like, why didn't my mom love me? That's hard. That's fucking difficult. 'Cause she left you as a baby. And why didn't she protect me? Or let's say what Eiji said is true, right? My mom, being me, Ash's mom loved him. Well, if that's the case, why did things turn out this way? Because in a lot of ways Ash is he's still very young and he's grown up in some ways, but in some ways you could argue that he's also stunted.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, if there's one thing that reading Flowers for Algernon taught me, by the way, read that book, 'cause it's fucking incredible. It's the best book I've ever written, and I will recommend it to anyone in a heartbeat who is at least old enough to understand the meaning behind it. But there's one thing that it really, really taught me, which seems obvious, but it is true, and I think it's worth reminding, is that you could be the smartest man on the planet. You could be, dare I say, sort of an IQ over 200, You could dare say be that. That does not make you emotionally smart. It does not make you emotionally intelligent, emotionally mature. And so,
Yeah.
I think that certainly applies in Ash's case here. That I mean, Eiji was the one who said in one of the previous episodes, "I'm still trying to figure out my feelings." And I think that applies just as much for Ash, even if it's not necessarily in the way that I would ultimately like, in which they express themselves, more sexually. Try to explore that kind of element and let that be a part of their relationship rather than it being like, at least as far as the optics are concerned, platonic.
Right.
But certainly it still factors into how they treat each other. I mean, Ash has flip-flopped from go, leave, don't come back, fuck you, fuck off, get out of this country. I'm doing this not because you're bad, because you're too good for me. That's the thing.
Don't want you to get hurt.
Yeah, don't want you to get hurt. And now he's come back to the other way around, where I would worry for you even if you had gone. There's nothing I can do about it. So I think he's still trying to explore his feelings. And maybe that's an explanation for why it's broadly platonic, that he can't even get to that point yet in which you consider it, because he's still trying to figure out the more emotive side of it. Who can say?
And I think even beyond the worry, I think he just wants him near, really. And who can blame him? So if the love of Ash's mother didn't save him, right? If she really did love him, then what does that say about the love of Ash and Eiji? Is that supposed to... We're supposed to... They believe, and I think we're supposed to believe, that it's going to save him. I don't know. Can it save anybody, love? I don't know. I think that they still have to... I think the show wants to say that they still have to try. Yeah. And that it's a good thing that he's going to. That Ash is being pulled out of a loveless life, being loved, being lifted up by that. And I don't know if in the end they're going to be saved, and certainly love alone couldn't save him as a child. It didn't protect him from all the awful shit he went through, but... So basically your summary of the plot thus far is, what is love? Baby, don't hurt Stop
me.
it. Stop it.
Don't hurt. Sorry.
You're getting the booze right now.
Like I've said before, folks, there's a very good reason I don't do karaoke, even though sometimes I do feel, the urge to do so simultaneously. I mean, I'll seriously, just go with sexual healing. I mean, that was the thing I was asking for.
Man, I can't remember the next line of that song, or I would quote it right now. But yeah, I mean, we will see. I don't know if,
I think for me, it's going to also really depend on the context of why she left, because that's something that's still hanging up. And funnily enough, maybe it could even never tell us that, because there are certainly cases in which children never know their biological parents, and they only know the thinnest of backstories.
Mm-hmm.
And they may never then find out. And that in its own right can be really interesting, fiction that Ash has created in his head of, like, all the horrible things he perceives of, the, of his mother. Like, oh, clearly she must have been a harlot. She's left for another guy, surely, that she just met. That kind of thing, all complete fiction, all completely made up. But it fits a narrative in his head that justifies his hatred of her and why he feels betrayed by her leaving in the absence of knowing the truth. But I also think it's going to very much boil down to the truth at hand if it does get revealed.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of Macross Delta now, funnily enough, and I'm going to shut my mouth before I say any more about it, because we're saving that for a very Macross Christmas.
That's right. The Mac Christmas.
Yeah, the very Macross Christmas, so I'm going to be quiet on that. But I'm just going to say that there have been times in fiction before where I think that if you could deliver a reasonable revelation on, truth behind a parent's absence, that can be really interesting. And there are times that, when it might be better off not revealing it at all, because what we do get, unfortunately, can be underwhelming. I mean, I would, for example, I'd be happy, but I'd be disappointed, for example, if it turned out that Ash's mother simply left because she died. She died, say, in a car accident. Not criminal related, nothing like that. It was just a twist of fate. She never meant to leave him. Maybe she was even coming to pick him up from, nursery or something like that. I mean, I'd be okay with that in the sense I'd be happy that she hadn't done anything untoward, but it would be very dramatically unfulfilling as well.
I don't think there's probably not any reason that can satisfy Ash, you know.
No.
I mean, what reason could make it where he wouldn't be extremely angry? You know what I mean? Or hurt. Even if she was entirely justified, that he still would also be entirely justified in feeling hurt by it. So, the only other talking point I had was the use of PowerPoint, which we went over. And I just want to know if, like, in the 80s manga, the pre-PowerPoint days, if these were just microfiche slides
I think
on a projector.
That was earlier, actually. Who was? Scrolling up the chat here, I'm going to find it. Someone mentioned I remember seeing it. He just talks with Dino, according to this. It was, Mira said that in the manga, Yulong just actually spoke with Dino about it rather than giving us this very visual demonstration.
Boo, that's like weak. I like the visual aids.
I'll be fair though.
The graphs.
I'll be fair though. I think that's probably one of the better ideas behind the adaptation element because they have the opportunity to present it visually. I mean, how would you be able to convey a PowerPoint like that, and technology notwithstanding, of course, in a manga that's probably not like that big page wide? It'd be difficult to get all that across without being horribly confusing. I mean, maybe two-page spread, perhaps. I don't know, but that's a small but nice change in that case. Then to go from that just a conversation to gain the information across visually as well. Even if it's also very funny.
I'm just making a poll about it now. Is the addition of PowerPoint the best addition to the Banana Fish anime adaptation?
What I really want to know, though, is if Yulong had like multiple slides, did they have star transitions between?
Star wipe!
What was the transition? Was it a star wipe? Yeah, Tulibel's right. Like, if you wanted to have, like, say, that two-page spread I mentioned, probably a lot of it would be obscured by the speech bubbles. So... you know what? I'll take the good adaptational choices made. I mean, that's a small one, but he's obviously showed really quickly, displays what he's done research-wise. Goes in with the reminds us of the relationships between characters. Goes in with the camera angles as well. I liked it. It was a nice small change, but a welcome.
Agreed. Well. Are we to the end of our discussion? I don't know if there's a lot more to break down unless there's some questions from anybody in the chat about wanting to know what we thought of X, Y, or Z. I think we covered a lot of the realm. We don't have a lot to say yet about Blanca because, there's not a lot of meat on the bone yet. There's
time for that, then.
Hasty's not the right word, but a very quick and dirty characterization so far. But we'll see. And how much have we got left?
We have
6 episodes?
7.
I think 18, 19. I don't think it's 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 24. It's 7. 7 episodes. It's embarrassing. Yes. Boy. The final third of the show. I hope we get a satisfying dramatic climax, some solid falling action, good resolution. I want them. The show deserves them. Don't botch the ending.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to sum up my feelings on Banana Fish thus far, I think that the raw material is fantastic, excepting the two elements that I've described, which is that Ash is too good, and it hasn't aged well relative to modern sensibilities. But it is still so good and so strong.
Yep.
That I still really like it. If it feels like I've been coming across quite hard on the show with the talking points I made in the past few episodes, I'm only speaking to the specifics and not to the wider things. I'm still very much entertained by this week on week. I'm still very much invested in seeing Ash.
I do this because I love you. This hurts me.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do. I really still am invested in the characters and want to see them succeed. I'm genuinely impressed with everything that's coming up so far. Like, I'm still thinking back actually to how I probably undersold how hard that episode with Short's death hit me. That was brutal.
It was very brutal.
That was fucking brutal to watch.
Yeah.
But not in a way that, again, I must stress was narratively bad. Like, I could say something was brutal to watch because it was a giant piece of shit. Quite the opposite in this case. It was magnificently written. It was cruel and capricious, but it made me want to see revenge, want to get behind the characters for this awfully justice that happened. With the way they treated the characters who, briefly as he was in the show, was still really likable. Short was great.
Shorter ruled. I mean, let's make no bones about it. Like,
that Shorter.
That Shorter ruled so hard. Like, fucking this podcast is extremely pro Shorter Wong. And Skipper. Okay, Skipper owned. Okay,
don't skip on Skipper.
You can't argue otherwise to me and remain my friend. I'm so sorry.
Indeed. Shall we rate the episode then, Doc?
I suppose we should. What do you give it, my friend?
I am going to give episode 17, The Killers, 3.25 bottles of wine with Trilby labels on them out of 5.
Ooh, okay.
There's one amazing visual cue that was for what was coming.
Mm-hmm.
That was magnificent, honestly.
I'm gonna stick with that because I don't have a strong feeling of. It doesn't seem like a 4-star episode, but I don't want dropping it below 3.5. Also seems uncharitable for what was there. So I'm gonna also go 3.5 PowerPoint slides of criminal data out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, this show, we talked about adaptation and standing on its own and doing its own thing. So I don't want to sound too hypocritical when I say I don't want things to get cut. I do want to get all the character context possible, but as Jeff pointed out, the manga's there for me afterward if I want to pursue that and see the full deal. There was a cut dick joke. Does this mean that there was a dick joke that was removed, or does this mean that there was a joke I missed that was about someone's dick that was like physically cut? What does this mean? What was the dick joke?
There is one small thing that I forgot. I can't believe I didn't bring this up, but I'll keep this brief. There's something I want to mention as well. So there is a scene in which this is after the introduction of Blanca, in which Ash is getting changed, going ready to go and go, whore himself out, so to speak. The camera of this is framed in such a way as that when he's putting his pants on, it shows it in glorious detail. And that's not me. No. That's not me being facetious towards it.
It's good.
Like, you'll often find. I think this is something I realized when I was watching Dan Olsen's 50 Shades Darker review, where he said that when you've got men doing camera work for male characters in a sexual form, they'll tend to be very coy about how they portray it. But in this case, no. Here's all of Ash's underhalf as he's putting pants on. So even as a cishet guy, I will say I appreciate them putting that in there because that's the work. It's boil of. It's meant to show off the characters and show their forms and their figures.
I'm sorry. Reading chat. That's not you. Oh, why do we
insert spicy mustard joke?
Yes.
Here.
Yeah.
Oh,
cut the best jokes, why don't you? Anime adaptation. Miss Sassy AG is a necessary component of this story. I'm beginning to feel. We get a little pouty AG, but Sassy AG has not heretofore reared his head. But
sadly not. No.
But I'm sorry, I cut you off by laughing.
No, I said all I wanted to say really on the matter, which was I just appreciate that, they're preserving that element in the adaptation. I mean, it's not something that's aimed at me, but I appreciate it's there regardless because it, again, maintains the spirit of the original work.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's that. Oh, wait, let's revisit
ツイッターポール
The Twitter poll really quick for those listening via audio only. There will be the following Twitter polls that you can vote on. For episode 17 of Banana Fish, The Killers, are we A, human, or B, dancer? It's early days, but dancer's running away with it at the minute. Are all existent humans horny for Ash Lynx? Duh and probably are the choices. Duh is winning, 71%. And very early days on this poll, very few votes, but 100% feel that the addition of PowerPoint is the best addition to the hashtag BananaFish anime adaptation.
Of course it is. It absolutely is. The only way it could be better is if there was Microsoft clip art in it. It was just a tiny cartoon house.
That paperclip can get fucked, though. I hate that guy.
Oh yeah, fuck Clippy. Would you like help preparing this document? Fuck.
No, please stop using valuable RAM by existing. So the choices on that one are yes, Star Wipe, or no, it's not Prezi. Are you familiar with Prezi?
I am not.
Okay. It's online presentation software that it bills itself as fancier PowerPoint, and it lives in the cloud, and you don't have to do shit on your own desktop, and it's all right, but it's no. It's no. Let's be real here, folks. With that, though, I think we've come to the end of today's stream. Thank you all for waiting patiently for us.
Indeed, thank you. Apologies for the problems. I say my house is currently being renovated. I wasn't aware that my dad had actually arranged electricians to visit in the evening. Mildly inconvenient because I spent a good hour in the dark just twittering on my phone. So the stream would have been a bit awkward using my camera phone in the dark. And like some Blair Witch shit or something like that.
Yes.
I once actually see the inglorious quasi high definition. I'm very sorry to say.
I once had a person conduct their job interview on just a cell phone sitting on a bench outside, and instead of like holding it up, as you might do, it was laying flat on the bench and he was looking over it.
Did he get the job?
No.
That's not a surprise.
No, he did not.
No. Maybe what I should have done was if you see the League of Legends music video, maybe I should have started spray painting everything and started wearing the glow in the dark purple and green spray paint stuff. You seen that, Doc?
No, I have not. Send it to me.
Well, anyway. But yeah, thank you all very much indeed for joining us today. We'll be back next week, if I'm mistaken.
Yep. I will be out of town tomorrow and the next day. If there are any of you in the Minneapolis, Minnesota area, please hit me up on Twitter at The Subtle Doctor, and we can arrange to have a drink or something. That is where I will be for the next couple days. So if you'd like to hang out, I'd be more than happy to. But where can the folks find you on good old Twitter?
Well, I'll throw out there as well, if you ever happen to be by in Manchester in the United Kingdom, you can drop me a line and I'll probably swing by and again we'll also go get pissed. Why the fuck not? As for Twitter, you can find me at Shadon1010 and also at CuriousCat.me/Shadon1010 if you want to ask me stuff. No sassy talk this time, just keep it simple.
Very good. And on that note, everybody, we thank you so much again. Please, I got to fulfill the podcast bingo here. Please rate and review us on iTunes, as it helps our discoverability. That's right. If you're listening to this via podcast, we do have a YouTube channel in which these stream of thoughts are live streamed with our lovely faces on them. See us talk at you in real time, if you'd like, or don't. We have a SoundCloud page as well, and of course Apple Podcasts, or there's plenty of other podcatcher stuff that we're on. We should be everywhere at this point. Please follow us on Twitter at Warui Deshou. Drop us a line at waruideshow@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Embrace each other, everyone. To the ends of the universe.
Good night.